Hey yo, what's going on? I'm Ben. We're back. Another week in the books for NFL DFS, specifically on DraftKings. Oh man, what a week. Just wait until we get into this. This is one of those weeks where I wish that I didn't have to review my lineup because, oh shit, was it bad. Um, I'm just a guy who loves DFS. I'm not a pro. I mean, you can tell that by this lineup. Um, and it's DFS is something that I want to be a stream of income for me. I don't play just for fun. And I think that's important to mention because I'm just kind of sharing my journey for anybody else that's doing the same. I'm just putting it all out there. And I'd love to have people kind of grow along with me. This is a journey for you to learn from my mistakes as I'm learning from them. And man, speaking of mistakes, let's get into the week. What a slate here. So quickly, I would say I average in tournaments. I average right around the cash line. So cash line is usually at kind of like the 75th percentile of the tournament, give or take, depending on the tourney. But my average is right around the cash line. So most weeks I'm either somewhere in like around like 80% or so. Other weeks I'm around 60% or so. So I'm just like kind of a little bit above min cashing or just missing the cash line. So it's enough to kind of like keep me afloat. And then every once in a while, I'll get up into that 20%, 10% range. And every once in a while, even higher than that. But for the most part, I average around the cash line. The reason that that's important to kind of say up front here is that I cannot remember a week that I did worse than this ever. I've been playing DFS for 5 years now, relatively seriously for the past 3, not in terms of bankroll, but in terms of how I approach my process and putting together lineups, putting a solid 10 to 12 hours a week in of research, lineup building, all that good stuff. Literally the worst week I can remember. In this particular tourney, I finished in 198th out of 215 people. You know when you're looking at your DK app and they've got the pretty little visual of where you're at in the tourney. Mine were not were they in the green, they were all the way to the left side, literally just like across the board on all the wrong plays this week. Now, I'm going to walk through this. Normally by this point, I've done my own personal written review that I normally link down below here. I didn't get to that this week because life had a really, really busy Monday. And as I mentioned, DFS is not my full-time job. It's not how I make a living, thank God. But let's get into the lineup. So like I said, this is the 5K mini gridiron. This is a really cool contest, by the way, for anybody who is kind of like dealing with a lower bankroll, but you want to kind of start stepping into things that are plus EV. In terms of the bigger tourneys, which are sexier because they have higher payouts, they're just not great for your bankroll because the amount of time that you're going to cash is much, much less than the amount of entries that you're going to put in. So this one, I wish I had found this all season. I'm going to make sure to go in and reserve some of these contests. I just found out about the hundos this week, which I don't know if any of you know about that, but I was not privy to those. Those are 100-player tourneys with just kind of like there are small buy-ins, $1, $3, $5, $10, and then I found this one as well with 100 people, hundo, and then I found this one which is 200 people, but a $27 buy-in, which is getting up there a little bit. If you're a small stakes player. But what's cool about this is that the payout structure is really flat up top. So $500 if you win first place, which of course that's not in the thousands, so it's not sexy, but you have a pretty solid shot at cashing and a legitimate shot at first here, as opposed to a tourney where there's thousands of people and your chances at first place are really pretty slim unless you're really sharp and it's football with a lot of variance. You have to get lucky. Things just have to hit right for you. So this is really nice. The payout structure is super flat. So entering this over time would be very plus EV. Plus I don't love that it's not like single or even like a 3 entry max. It's 6 entry max, which because you can get, if you got some sharks in here, it's going to make it a little bit harder to cash. But in general, I still like the structure of it. So I will keep playing this one. That is if I don't run out of money because I suck. All right, so it's funny and ironic because I felt actually pretty strong going into this week. And we'll talk about what I did right, what I did wrong here. Clearly, by results, I did a lot wrong. But this is important. This is when reviewing your lineup is really, really important, because you have to make sure that your process is on. And so if I can see what I did right in my process and results just didn't follow through, great. And then if I can also find some spots where my process wasn't up to par where I want it to be, that's great also. All right, let's start with the quarterback spot this week. I had a really, really hard time nailing down quarterback. I was going back and forth. I actually almost played Mike Glennon. I thought about Sam Darnold. Like, what the fuck? I thought about those guys because they were both at 5,100. They were up against, or they were in game environments where I expected them to be trailing and pretty quickly and have to come back. Both the Seattle pass defense, which has been getting better recently, but they had been terrible at the beginning of the year. And then the Titans pass defense has been awful as well. But it's important to remember, I specifically I subscribe to 1 week season, OWS with JM to win. And he said in his NFL Edge write-up, which I'll link that info down below, so you can check out 1 week season if you're not familiar. I've been following JM for 5 years, and he's great. This lineup is not a reflection of him. So he specifically said, he's like, bad quarterbacks or bad matchups don't make good players or bad players good. Bad matchups do not make bad players good. It heightens the chance that they can get there, but it's not just automatically making them good. Sam Darnold and Mike Glennon are not good and were not made good this weekend. Glennon was, because I played him in some of my larger field tourneys, he got pulled in the third quarter and scored like 3 DraftKings points or something ridiculous against, like I said, a terrible Titans defense that they were going to have to be passing against. All right. So I settled on Matt Stafford at 5,700. Like I said, I didn't see any of the higher priced guys this week really hitting. And I really only like paying up for quarterback if I can see a clear path to 30 points, which I just didn't this week. Of course, there's always the possibility for guys like Mahomes, who was way, way up there in price, and like Russ, Kyler. But I just didn't feel confident enough with those guys. I wanted to save the salary for some of these other plays I wanted to get to. Matthew Stafford at 5,700. Since Darrell Bevell was fired, they opened it up a little bit last week, and he threw for was it like 400 yards against the Bears, who have a pretty good defense. So I was like, okay, well, Green Bay's definitely going to be leading in this one. Maybe it's close, but most likely they're leading, so Detroit will have to be throwing. Didn't quite get there. I was definitely hoping for closer to 18 to 20 out of him. Wasn't expecting anything super high, but was hoping for a little bit more. DeAndre Swift. I really, really liked him. This is crazy to me. 2.8%. And I was going to go all in on him because he was going to be low owned. The lines were giving him a solid workload before his concussion 2 weeks ago. He was out last week with an illness also, but I saw that as almost a better thing because it was unrelated, so it was kind of extra rest time after that concussion. So I was expecting him to go back into a full-time role, and against a terrible, terrible Green Bay run defense, I thought that he had a great chance at least one touchdown, if not two, and they were using him in the pass game too, so I thought I was going to get some decent receptions out of him. 24 yards rushing. This is the part of his stat line that surprises me. The other things are pretty much right in line with what I was hoping. I definitely was hoping for another 5 points, 50 yards out of him on the ground. All right. Initially, what I liked in the beginning of the week was a correlation with Zeke and Cowboys D. I ended up moving on to Buccaneers D because I really like them as kind of a low-own option against Kirk Cousins, who struggles against just being pressured. He's prone to sacks and throwing interceptions, so I thought that was a sneaky way to get some leverage on this game that other people either weren't attacking or were going to be attacking with receivers, which, based on this percentage, they weren't really even doing that. So I ended up paying $500 more for the Buccaneers, who scored, I don't know, it was like 12. Like the Cowboys scored like twice as many points as the Buccaneers did at 500 less. So that sucked. Always hurts to like be on a defense or a player early in the week and then switch off of them and have them outplay the thing that you played in the place, especially when you paid up for it. Zeke, though, man, just in hindsight, what a garbage play. What a fucking garbage play. Seriously? I allowed myself to get talked onto him a little bit by some of the stuff I was reading. I just thought that in this situation, the adjusted the adjusted line yards versus the Bengals was way in Dallas's favor, and thought that this is finally a game that they would be leading and kind of leaning on Zeke because of that. Well, I got most of that right in that they were leading and that their defense scored, and then I didn't play them. And they were in a position to just run the ball down the throats of the Bengals, and they didn't. 48 rushing yards, 2 receptions for 11 yards, no touchdowns. I thought Zeke had a chance at 152 touchdowns this week. Ugh. God, couldn't have been more wrong. This is a dumb play from a process standpoint because Zeke has just not looked the same this year. He's not explosive. Dallas has had line issues and injuries. Just don't love the play. I've tried to play Zeke a few times this year because I think he has what it takes as a goal line back that catches a few passes a game. And at a low percentage, I like that play, but he's not Zeke of the past this year. So don't love that. Definitely wish I would have paid up to Austin Eckler here, another $400. And obviously, I would have loved to get to Derrick Henry. But the real problem here is that I actually had Eckler in the lineup until, I don't know, late on Saturday, and I swapped off of him to Elliott. I liked Eckler, again, kind of low owned after coming off of a disappointing game last week. Figured he would see his targets and get a decent amount of work. I just didn't love the goal line role for him, as they did get Balaj and I think even one of their other backs back. So I ended up going to Zeke, who I thought would have a chance at touchdowns where Eckler may not. Eckler scored like 20 or something like that because he had another 9 freaking receptions. Dude is just, he's a check down like God. Like Herbert is just checking down to him left and right. So it's important to keep in mind for Eckler, he's definitely got solid floor going forward. It's like almost guaranteed 10 or 15 points from him. Derrick Henry. Would have loved to get Derrick Henry in this spot. I actually basically wrote him off early this week. I know, bad take. Because at his price, at like, what was he, 2.5 or 3,000 more than these guys, I thought these guys don't have the same ceiling as him, but I thought they could at least come close. You know, if these guys are scoring 25 each and Henry has a bad game and scores 30, you're not losing too much ground there, but you're saving a lot of salary. Obviously, these guys tanked for the most part. Like I said, I would have been happy with 20 out of Swift, but Zeke obviously kills you at single digits. Derrick Henry, I mean, just continues to have a massive ceiling. One other mindset that I find really, really, really helpful in DFS is we always think about, we're conditioned to think about players and plays in terms of points per dollar of salary. And it's important as a starting point, but at the end of the day, this is another line from JM to Win at 1 week season. Again, I'll link it down below if you want to check him out. He does like a free, you can subscribe free for a week or something like that. One thing that he says that I really, really like is as soon as lock hits, salary no longer matters. All that matters is how many points those guys are going to get you and what their, consequently what their ceiling is, at least in tournaments. So Derrick Henry was one of those plays on a week where nothing else is quite that great, where you want to take him just because he has a massive ceiling compared to everybody else. The Jaguars had no hope of stopping him. I mean, the fact that he was going to run for 150 and 2 was almost a given. And, a slate like this where there aren't a handful of awesome running back plays, like this year in general, for the most part, you just take that shot at ceiling and find your points elsewhere with these other guys. Final running back piece here. I think I actually did this last week too. I don't normally play running back in the flex, but with this week, I didn't hate it because, again, it sounds like a freaking joke in hindsight, but I thought all three of these guys had a shot at, I definitely thought 20 was a very reasonable expectation for them, and I thought they all had a shot at 25. And so I was going to take those points from guys that have real goal line roles, from guys that do have pass game roles as well. And I did love so Ronald Jones became really popular. I actually liked him before he became popular at the end of the weekend when Leonard Fournette was ruled out. I do think it was a sharp play in general, just because they really do love running the ball with him. He has looked pretty good this year in terms of he runs hard. Unlike Zeke over here, who's like hobbled and looks like shit. Damn it. Not mean to do that. And also gave me a nice little correlation in a game that I expected Minnesota to struggle a little bit. I was really kind of hoping on the Buccaneers getting a few turnovers, maybe even scoring on one. Minnesota did struggle, but look at that. They did not even force a turnover, which is interesting because I expected Cousins to throw like a solid 1 to 3 picks in that spot. But, so that was it for my flex. That was it for the running back spots. Now, wide receiver and tight end. I liked this Jets-Seahawks game. I liked the Seahawks to put up 30 to 40 on the Jets. I was right about that. What I was wrong about was the Jets being able to do anything in return. I definitely didn't think they were going to be competitive, but I thought 17 to 20 points, so a solid 2 touchdowns out of them was possible. I thought they were at least going to be able to move the ball with, Seattle playing like a prevent defense in the fourth quarter or something like that. So I expected guys to at least rack up yards and catches, maybe not touchdowns, but You got Berrios at min price here, which this was also a risky play because Jamison Crowder was ruled active. But I kept Berrios in because I kind of thought that they were ruling Crowder active, but weren't actually going to play him. So I knew my lineup, after the noon games was basically screwed anyways. So I was like, well, I'll leave him in case he ends up being a sneaky play that people aren't on. I'm honestly pretty surprised that he saw over 10% with the news that Crowder was active, but there's probably plenty of people who just didn't believe it, similar to me. Crowder did end up playing like half the snaps or something like that, which definitely limited Berrios because I think Crowder went like 5 for 40 or something like that. So if you add that to Berrios's line here, basically doubles his score, gets you 14, 15 points, which is exactly what you're hoping from him at 3,000. But I liked the correlation here. There's kind of like a mini stack with Lockett and Berrios. I liked Lockett was definitely a ceiling play for me this week. He has not looked good all year besides his one blow-up game? I don't think it's been two. Maybe 2 blow-up games. He just hasn't looked good. He hasn't really done anything outside of that game or two. I just figured maybe this is the one other big game he has before the end of the year. The Jets can't guard anybody. If you would have told me that Lockett was going to have 5 for 50 with no touchdown in a game that they scored 40 points, I would have called you a liar and proceeded to play him. So at least for me, this is one of those, I like to look at the outcome in this form. Like if you're telling me that Seattle scored 40 points and Lockett scored 10 points, I'm not going to believe you. Like I will play Lockett every single time. Well, I guess maybe not, just because the Seahawks are very imbalanced in that it's usually one of their receivers going off. So DK could have had a 2 or 3 touchdown game. But similar thing goes for Zeke. Even Swift and Stafford here. Like if you're telling me that Dallas is scoring 30 and Zeke is not scoring a touchdown, I'm blown away. So I'm going to play, like if you're telling me Dallas scored 30, I'm okay with a Zeke play. If you're telling me that, okay, sorry, I was highlighting the wrong score there. Detroit scored 24. Definitely going to play one of these guys, not 2 of them. Final piece is, you'll notice I stacked Hawkinson with Stafford. I loved Hawkinson this week. He's been probably the most consistent tight end in the league this year, but he hasn't scored touchdowns. He's scored a couple, but every game he's getting 10 to 15 points, which at tight end this year is great. Outside of a random Darren Waller blow up or Travis Kelce, who is in a league of his own. I liked this play where not many people are going to be going. Honestly, very surprised to see him above 5%. He finally got there with the touchdown. Didn't have as many receiving yards as he has recently, but 16 points is pretty much what I'm hoping for. 20 is like really what you're hoping for there, but that's about what you want. And then Adam Thielen was the final play. I was playing him as a mini stack on the other side of the Ronald Jones Buccaneers play. Normally, you can play both Jefferson and Thielen, and they'll combine for a pretty great score. Usually one of them is having a 30-point game, and the other one is having like a 15 to maybe 20-point game. But in this case, I figured one of them would still rack up some yards, but I definitely didn't expect either to really go off, which in hindsight is why did I play him then? Because I really did expect Minnesota to struggle here, and I really did expect Minnesota to more likely score less than 20 to 24 points. And so why I paid $7,000 for Thielen, don't love that. Don't love that as a play. I just figured they would have to be passing so much. I figured Cousins was going to throw 40 times trying to come back against Tampa Bay, and that him and Jefferson would both have 8 catches because in 12 targets each, because Cousins just had to throw like crazy to try to come back, which was kind of true, but the part that kept them from doing that was that Tampa Bay just totally overwhelmed them Their defense, yes, has been dominant this year in terms of how they blitz and get pressure on the quarterback, but their pass defense has let up quite a few points just because teams refuse to run on them because their run defense is elite. Okay, that was a lot of words to describe this very sad roster. You hate it when you get multiple snowflakes and no little fires here. Not good. Again, we're talking bottom 5% of a lineup or of the tourney. Just so horrible. Look at that. Almost didn't even finish in the hundreds, the 3 digits. Holy shit. Meanwhile, let's quickly just check out what Shaka Shiv up here did. Look at that. Lots of fires. He played that Cowboys defense that I was initially on. Now, I will say, I don't hate this as a process play because I've said it in some of my other line previews as well. I don't want to play a defense that is 25% owned. Defense has incredibly high variance. If there's going to be that high ownership on a defense, I'm just going to take the chance and go with somebody else because now it's a little bit more justifiable at a low kind of like min price cost or near that. But I still am not going to want to side with ownership when it comes to defense. Similarly to wide receiver and tight end. As soon as you get over 20%, I'm going to try to start looking for other directions. So don't hate the Buccaneers play. It played out in terms of they got a ton of pressure on Cousins. He just didn't turn the ball over like I was expecting. By the way, I think there was a defensive fumble recovery now that I was thinking about it. Okay, so we called out Cowboys first. Let's see, he played Rodgers naked. Interesting. It's a good call, though, on a week where Devontae Adams was just, priced way the hell up there. Yes, he's going to get you points, and he did get you points, but to save a little bit of salary is also not a bad move there. Jonathan Taylor, God damn it. It's all over Taylor last week. Loved him as a play. He just got there. Really kind of upset that I didn't continue to ride that train because at 5,800, 10% ownership and 150 and 2 touchdowns. Damn, dude. That's the kind of play you're looking for right there against a brutal Vegas defense. Quite honestly, this game just wasn't quite on my radar. The Colts aren't trustworthy when it comes to who they're giving the ball to. He did rip off a couple big runs, which, elevated him to this place. But still, he got there because the defense is so bad. And then he actually played T.Y. Hilton as well. It's pretty interesting because he played Jonathan Taylor and T.Y. Hilton and didn't even bring it back with anybody from the Raiders. So interesting play at 1%. Got 2 touchdowns, 86 yards, 5 catches. What a play, man. Props on that one. T.Y. Hilton over the past 2 weeks is finally hitting some... He's regressing to his mean in terms of all those touchdowns he wasn't catching early in the year are finally hitting. Brandon Ayuk. Oh, God, man, another one. Similar to Jonathan Taylor, I've loved Ayuk recently. He continues to be low priced, and the 49ers are literally drawing plays up for this guy. They love him. Everybody thinks about Deebo Samuel. And even, it's different when George Kittle's out. They're definitely trying to get this guy the ball. But he's kind of he's not going to be a no-namer anymore by the end of the year. But, look at this, 10 catches. They are just forcing this guy the ball. Washington actually has a decent pass defense. So that's kind of why I didn't get there myself. But volume was always going to be there for this dude. Solid play. Then he played Derrick Henry and Corey Davis from the Titans. Great play against a terrible defense. This is one of those plays, again, where I figured 30 points was almost guaranteed for the Titans. And if you'll notice in the lineup that I showed, I had no Titans. I don't love when I know that a team is going to score 30 plus points and I don't have anybody from their team in my lineup. I loved Derrick Henry to get 25 to 30 points this week. But as I mentioned with my running backs, I mistakenly thought that they could get at least into the 20s, close to 25. And if Henry has a 25 to 35 or 25 to 30 point game, he's not killing you by not having him. But he's the king. He crushed him. And then I love having Corey Davis as well. He didn't get there, but at 5,700 against a horrible Jacksonville secondary, I think that 5,700 for Corey Davis in this spot was pretty solid. Final two plays here, Dalton Schultz, kind of a low-priced receiver against a bad defense who continues to see targets. The Cowboys have spread their targets out a little bit more recently. Amari's still going to see 7 to 9, but Michael Gallup has kind of seen a resurgence. He actually crushed this week for his, because he was like 3,500 and scored, I don't know, like 20 points or something like that. So Schultz is going to get, he's going to get you 5 to 40 every week, basically. He's good for like 8 to 10 DraftKings points, almost never going to get you a ceiling. So he probably just liked him down there at a lower cost. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I actually really, really liked this play from this game at 5,900. 1% owned. Love that. Figuring, everybody's going towards the Kansas City pass game. And so what if Edwards-Helaire gets in for a touchdown or two when everybody else is on Tyreek and Kelsey, which they were right by those guys. But this is one of those plays that's a really solid tourney play, because if nobody else is on him and he can easily run against the Miami run defense, their pass defense is actually better than their run defense is, and had a pretty solid turnout actually with 5 catches for 59 receiving yards. If he had gotten in for a touchdown, you get a solid 20 out of him at his price. That is good when nobody else has him. All right, that's it. That's enough. I'm done with this fucking week. Oh my God, what a disaster. What a disaster. Anyways, this is the kind of week where reviewing your lineup blows because you just feel like a complete jackass. And it's painful to see some of these things that felt a little bit more obvious, like playing Derrick Henry, playing Brendan Ayuk, playing that Cowboys D, Jonathan Taylor. But it's important to look at where process and where results were different. And I feel like I had a little bit of both. Learned some things. Definitely looking forward to being better next week. The one thing I did well was better contest selection, something I've been working on because I've just been putting myself in too many negative EV tournaments. Just that the fields are too big. Like I said, I average the cash line, so every week I have a pretty good shot at cashing, but I still don't do quite as good of I don't really have the mindset yet to build for first place, although I guess you could say that's what I did this week, which is why I bombed so hard. In tourneys, you're not just looking to cash, you want to go big or go the buck home. All right, that's it. I've talked long enough. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you got questions or anything, let me know below. Check out links to 1 week season. You can go there for free for a little bit. Awesome content by JM to Win and the OWS fam there. Hope you guys did better than me this week, and see you next time.